And yeah, let's check this video out from Sticks then. Hoyo's massive 5 new gacha announcement just shocked everyone. 5 new gacha announcement? Is this an actual new game? Because there's been rumors of a Genshin-like Hoyo MMO. Apparently, don't know how true that is. I've heard it through the grapevine from multiple creators and multiple places now. So let's see what he's got to say in this video, guys. You should check Sticks out. If you like your gacha content, I'm sure you'll like some of his videos.
On 5 new gacha games right now. 5.
Is that from Hoyo? Let me just start that again.
Hoyo are working on 5 new gacha games right now.
Okay.
5.
All right.
Yeah, you heard that correctly. A modern, open world, urban, Unreal Engine.
I'm telling you, Hoyo are looking at the games that are coming out all over the spot, aren't they? And they're just like, right, we've got to put something there to combat that one, something here to combat that one. We just got to be in all the spaces, right? We just got to make sure that nobody can encroach on our little space here. We want to control the market, which, hey, from a business standpoint, I guess it's kind of smart. These guys have made enough money over the last few years now to fund multiple projects, so why not try and capture even more of the gacha space? It's, you know, sensible business, really.
5 physically based rendering RPG. This is essentially Project Mugan or Neverness to Everness, but with
still
the
hype for that
polish. A realistic fantasy action physically based rendering on.
It might have the Hoyo polish, but will it have the Hoyo stinginess? Hopefully not. Hopefully a little bit more like Star Rail or Zenless, even though still could do with a little bit more generosity, but let's hope it's not like Genshin in that fact.
Unreal Engine 5 game that doesn't have any more information than that released at present. An animal anthropomorphic social chibi style life.
We've already saw this, haven't we? We spoke about this on the channel quite a while back. The one that was kind of like an Animal Crossing kind of game where it was more like a little farming thing, and we actually saw some gameplay of that, didn't we? So we already know about this one.
Life sim user-generated content games. This is As to Weave Heaven, which I'm assuming this is going to appeal to the Animal Crossing, Harvest Moon, Rune Factory players. A brand new Honkai game. This is potentially going to be the Honkai MMO that they revealed. And finally, a European.
Oh, so it's less of a Genshin MMO, more of a Honkai MMO. Interesting. Okay, that sounds cool.
An American cartoon shooter set in the near future that is fantasy themed and a multiplayer game playable online with other people. Yeah, this, if it wasn't already aware, is going to
a PvP game, is that, or is that co-op?
Be big. Now, if this is your first time here, consider subscribing to the channel, hitting the
okay, I'm interested, I'm intrigued. You know, I want more from Hoyo. A lot of people on my channel tend to think I'm a bit of a Hoyo hater. Far from it. I like Genshin, I really like Star Rail, I really like Zenless Zone Zero as well, and I do really like Genshin. I just think that there's lots of issues within that game that are just simple little fixes, and it just really annoys me that Hoyo don't make the fixes, because they've like implemented some of the changes in their other games and refused to do it for Genshin, and then there's just quality of life things that just couldn't be fixed, and it's like, you know, I won't carry on.
Bell notification, that way you remain up to date with every single thing that I post, and I post daily. Do not miss out. MiHoYo's new recruitment information showcases several new games from the company. And
this is big. This is big.
Has a lot of information, interestingly enough, with imagery. It is all in Chinese. However, it was translated into English.
Hey, let's go. We know it's going to be a perfect translation, right? There's going to be no issues, surely.
This depicts several different games, 5 in total, I think. Scrolling down, reading through this, it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. We can see that this game is going to be a modern, urban, open world, stylized, rendering multi-story, Unreal Engine powered.
Multi-storied line. What does that mean? Is it going to be like different stories for different characters, branching stories, multiple stories going on at the same time, where you're going to see from like different perspectives potentially, maybe?
RPG. So a modern, urban, open world RPG. This is
interesting. So it's saying here, UE5, are these going to be running on Unreal 5? Because I was led to believe that Genshin are working on their own engine, apparently. And I think, well, Hoyo are working on their own engine. It was going to be called the Genshin engine. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Somebody let me know in the comments. Was I led astray there? Because I'd heard that. So maybe this is just not ready yet, potentially, you know, maybe they're going for that extra sizzly special visuals that you're potentially going to get from UE5. My only worry is, I hope it's got the Hoyo aesthetic to it, because there's a lot of games that are coming out in UE5 at the moment. It's still early days that just kind of look like UE5 slop, And that's not that the Unreal Engine is a bad engine. Of course it's not. It's just that they seem to be just not utilizing it to its maximum strengths, and they just kind of come out looking very similar. Look good fidelity-wise, but just, look really generic.
It's like Zenless Zone Zero, but in a world like Genshin Impact. Down here we see an Unreal Engine 5 powered realistic action fantasy game.
Okay.
This doesn't say that it's open world. However, realistic fantasy.
That makes me think it'll have like sort of like a Final Fantasy 16 kind of graphic style, rather than the heavily artistic, cartoony comic style that we used to with Hoyo. Interesting. Okay.
Action. This might ultimately end up being something more like Zenless, but with a fantasy setting rather than an urban setting. Here we have animal anthropomorphism, which is creatures kind of, I guess, if you're
one for the furries, basically one for the furries. That's what that's for.
I don't, can Zenless be considered a game that uses anthropomorphic
definitely
creatures?
Yeah, definitely.
Like,
for sure, like some of the characters are definitely I'm not even going to try and attempt the word right now. I'm not even going to try and attempt it because my pronunciation is dog water. But
humanoid animal people,
definitely,
or maybe something more like Neko girls and Neko guys would be. Interestingly enough, this game does say it is a life simulation socializing gacha, which is, I guess, might be something to do
I'll
with
try it, but it's not necessarily for me.
Heaven game that they're making. Here we have a modern town. The sense of life accompanied by elves, fun, fantasy, stylized rendering. So here we have a European and American cartoon-inspired shooting game that is set in a futuristic fantasy.
What does that mean then? A European and American cartoon shooting near future fantasy online? Does that mean it's gonna be like with cartoon like visuals, but it's gonna be near, so it's gonna like Call of Duty, but with the MiHoYo visual style? Like, what does that mean?
Setting that looks as though it's also going to be online. Okay, this I think might be their first like full
Valorant cross COD.
Not a game that requires online connectivity to play like Genshin or Zenless or Honkai Star Rail, but rather an actual
it's going to be co-op or PvP,
where people can either play together or forced to play together, whether it's PvE or PvP oriented.
I did say this. I said it wouldn't be long until Hoyo try and branch out into the shooter space. I'm surprised that we haven't really got a gacha game like that just yet. And I guess probably it's going to need somebody with the Hoyoverse, credentials and capabilities, money, to do something like that, at least to make it work really well, because the core shooting part of the game has got to be done well, hasn't it? Otherwise, it's just going to flop. Unless it's like a full-on mobile game, then I guess they can get away with it. But if you want it to work across platforms, which seems to be Hoyo's MO now, they want it to be on PC, they want it to be on consoles as well, day one. So it's got to be tight, it's got to work well. And I feel like they are the company that potentially could do that, because they've got the they've got the cash, haven't they? Really, they've got the infrastructure to make something like that happen.
This is interesting. This is actually kind of fascinating. Navigating back to Reddit, it does seem as though they translated it, I guess, in a little bit more detail, a little bit more accurately. Character concept art: a modern city, an open world, stylized rendering, multiple different storylines, physically based rendering, Unreal Engine 5 role-playing game. This, I think, is going to be the big one. Open world, modern, physically.
See, I'm here for that. Modern city, open world, because this is one of the reasons why I'm really looking forward to Nevernis to Evernis, because as your Premiliat looks amazing, but we've got Genshin, we've got Wuthering Waves, and that doesn't mean we can't have more games like that, because, we wouldn't have had Wuthering Waves otherwise, and I really like that. But I want something open world within the gacha space, but not necessarily the fantasy setting that we've got now. Or if it's fantasy, but maybe something different, so it doesn't necessarily look like the evergreen world that you're rolling around doing the same sort of thing. That's why I'm really looking forward to Nevernis to Evernis. So, hey, if Hoyo can bring something out that's along those lines, that's got the Hoyo polish, as he said, I'm here for that. I'm definitely here for that.
Base rendering Unreal Engine 5 RPG. Game number 2, a realistic fantasy action physically based rendering Unreal Engine 5 game. Game number 3 is going to be about animals, anthropomorphism, social interaction. It's going to be a chibi style a
Not for
life
me,
sim
not for me.
with
We'll check it
user-generated
out, though.
content. So this
Though,
is
but it's not for me.
definitely the Ask to Weave Heaven game.
Yeah, definitely.
Number
We saw
4
that.
is a Honkai intellectual property game, a modern town, sense of life, spirit companion, fun fantasy, stylized.
What does that mean? Sense of life? Is it going to be like a sim game or something? You know, is it trying to be Hoyo's version of The Sims? Along those lines, sense of life. I'm not too sure exactly what that means.
Rendering. What this is probably, or maybe the Honkai MMO that they announced. Before we go any further, let me take a moment here to thank my incredible patrons over on Patreon and my YouTube channel members who allow for me to continue to do dedicated videos like this every single day. You guys are phenomenal, and I cannot thank you all enough for the support. Now let's keep talking. Game number 5, European and American cartoon shootings in the near future, a fantasy game that is also multiplayer.
That's what I'm curious about. Multiplayer, is that PvE co-op? Is that PvP? Is that like, I don't know. Where are we going with this? I'm very intrigued by this. Is this going to be gacha? Because how do you really make a game that's going to appeal to people, not just on mobile, but on PlayStation, Xbox, PC, that's PvP and has a gacha component, and it doesn't totally like just break the game. It's not totally imbalanced. It's something that's just not fun unless you're a big spender. Of course, we know those components are going to obviously come in some form that you're going to have some sort of benefit, but I wonder how egregious that benefit will be. But I'm here for it. I've been wanting an anime style shooter for a while. Whether is this going to be first person, third person, that'll be interesting to find out as well. And yeah, if it's going to be PvP also. Is it going to be arena? Is it going to be like an attraction shooter?
Quite the diverse selection of genres, subgenres in gaming. If there's one thing Hoyo has made very apparent, it is that they want to take over the gaming space. They want to dominate every single market they can.
Potentially as well. What's the possibility that some of these are not even gacha games? There's a potential that like maybe they're just trying to branch out into other spaces of gaming. They're seeing at the moment Western studios slipping in specific areas. Obviously, looking at this American European shooter, maybe they're looking like, okay, there's a spot here for us to enter the market, potentially grab up some of these players, give them maybe what they want. Maybe I just have standard microtransactions in the game and it not necessarily be gacha related. I'd be interested to see that as well, because I've been waiting for Hoyo to do that sort of thing, actually. Because China and the East is rising as a gaming power. It's evident. The West is slipping massively in a lot of regards recently. IPs for years and decades being ignored by companies like Sony. Game companies desperately trying to inject things into games that people just don't want. And games just not living up to what they were expected to be over and over and over again. I think if the Chinese market can really just get the polish and story up to scratch on a lot of games, and I'm not saying not all of them don't, but I think if they can really like get that locked in, they could really take over the Western market.
Genshin Impact is what kickstarted everything. An open world action anime RPG. Honkai Star. Okay, well, I mean, we can go back, I guess, to Honkai Impact, which was an instance level based anime action RPG, or even further back with Tears of Themis, or I think were they the ones that made Gun Girl Z? They're the ones that made Gun Girl Z, right? So I guess we can't go all the way back, but Genshin really kickstarted their
Definitely. Like, Genshin was really, for me, the first gacha game that, like, stepped outside the niche of the gacha space, didn't it? It became a game that, like, become global as well. It wasn't so much centered around the East. It became this international, well-known game that, like, normies knew about. And I'm talking about me in that regard, you know? I'm a gamer, but I didn't come into Genshin until last year. But I heard about Genshin. I hadn't heard about 99% of all the other gacha games. But everybody pretty much knew about Genshin. The game was huge and still is huge. So it broke the mold. It was, you know, all the gacha games that we're getting now, all roads lead back to Genshin in that regard, don't they? Genshin walks, so a lot of these games can run, to be fair.
Universe. Then we had Honkai Star Rail, which was a segregated world, not instance, not open world, but segregated world, turn-based anime RPG, which did incredibly well. Then we had Zenless Zone Zero, which is
Star Rail's just a straight-up JRPG,
segregated
a linear straight-up JRPG that's just got a gacha system.
RPG where you deploy characters on mission, so it's closer to Honkai or Honkai Impact than it is a Honkai Star Rail or Genshin. And then we have all of these. We have other open world games coming that are action based. We have games being built on Unreal Engine 5. We have fantasy games, realistic games, anthropomorphic games, social games, chibi games, life sim games, and you know, whatever this ultimately ends up being. A European.
I think I'm really intrigued by this the most. I don't know if it'll be the one that I'll want the most, but I'm so curious of where they're going with this. Is this like, again, is it PvP? Is it PvE? Is it like an arena shooter? Is it more of a tactical kind of thing? Is it going to be third person? Is it going to be first person? Is it going to be like an extraction type of game? Is it going to be a more open world thing? You know, is it going to be survival? There's so many potential possibilities for this that I'm so interested of what it possibly could be.
An American cartoon shooting game. I don't know about that one. I will give Hoyo credit here. They have not missed the mark yet. Genshin and Honkai Star Rail are gargantuan success.
That's one thing. I think you have got to give credit where credit's due in terms of Hoyo. Now, we can pull them up on a lot of things in regards to generosity in some of the titles. Not all of them, really. But it's a spectrum. It definitely gets better in some of the titles than in others. But I think when it comes to quality, when it comes to minute-to-minute gameplay, I think they do a really good job of that. Now, I know some people are not big fans of Zenless at all, but I think Zenless is a fun game. It's super casual. Gacha games are casual, full stop. But Genshin, Star Rail, and Zenless Zone Zero, all, in my opinion, totally, like, they're good games, I think. They're all above average games. I'm still yet to play Impact, and I'm going to play that soon to get a feel of that as well. I've yet to play that, but we are probably play that in the next coming weeks.
Says Zenless Zone Zero is also a very, very successful game. Not as successful as the two aforementioned, but you know,
hey,
it is
there's still time. There's still time.
Successful, quite popular. This
I
one
don't think
right
it will
here,
be, but you know.
I don't know. The reason people love all of Hoyo's games are because the stories are good, the voice acting is good, the gameplay is good, the content in the games is good, but more than everything else, the graphics are good. Now, yeah, Wuwa might have better.
I think it's less about the actual graphics. It's the art style. This is where they smash it. They smash it with the art style. You know, because in my opinion, you can look at like say Wuthering Waves and Genshin. Wuthering Waves is graphically a better looking game in regards to fidelity, graphical fidelity. It's better looking, but that doesn't mean that Genshin isn't a gorgeous game in terms of art style. I say this all the time, and I think Wuthering Waves is as well. Graphics will only look good for so long, and then they become outdated. Art styles last. They're everlasting. You can go back and look at games 10, 20 years old, and sometimes even older, that it was all about the art style rather than trying to make it look really good. And it just, you know, it stands the test of time.
Better like character models and terrain than Genshin now, but that's because, you know, this is a modern game rather than Genshin, which is like 4 or 5 years old now. But then Honkai Star Rail looks a lot better than Genshin.
You know, if they're running on UE5 as well, they're going to look great. They are going to look great.
As we have seen, every Hoyo game gets progressively better looking, but they all maintain the beautiful, crisp, very fluid, very polished anime aesthetic. And I don't know if you can necessarily do that with a cartoon game, like one that is focused on American and European
I think you definitely can.
Characters
yeah, for sure.
and aesthetics.
Who's to say when they're saying European and American here, and they say cartoon, maybe we're looking at like the Marvel style, the DC style of comic book cartoon, you know, that sort of style, the you know, with the modern comic book cartoons, you know, that it's got closer to an anime aesthetic in a way. It's obviously not, but you understand what I'm saying. Maybe it's going to look like that. The characters aren't going to have this anime look, but they're still going to look really nice, but just in this Western style, which I do definitely prefer the style of anime. I'm biased in that regards, but I'm here for that. If the aesthetic and the art style's gorgeous, then I'm definitely here for that.
Anime is incredibly successful. Cartoons, on the other hand, not so much, outside of children anyway. I think there is a lot of potential.
I don't know, like, you know, you got things like Invincible and stuff, you know, there are plenty of Western styled adult style cartoons. Just, you know, the anime is way more successful. Like, there's no doubt about that.
For several of these games,
especially for adults.
Sweet Heaven game, 100%. That's going to appeal to Animal Crossing, to Harvest Moon, to Rune Factory, to Stardew Valley players. and probably open up the entire like player base for all Hoyo games to something they never
They're trying to
had
get the
access
fingers
to
in all
before.
of the pies,
Because if you
basically.
think about it,
Which,
Zenless and Honkai and Genshin, they all kind of tap into the same player base. Maybe each game opens their total player pool up by maybe 10, maybe 20%. But this right here, this is millions of people that don't play their games that might in the future. And even if they don't, the people that spend on this game are not going to be the people that are spending on all their other games, which means a total gross.
I think, even though I do think there's a sizable female audience in gacha games, maybe larger than in others. I don't know on the numbers on that. You know, it's like Valorant. Valorant seems to have a bit females represented a little bit more than, say, something like Counter-Strike or Call of Duty. Just from anecdotal, and I've heard from other people as well. But yeah, I feel like a chibi Animal Crossing or a life sim kind of game would definitely bring in a lot more women, wouldn't it, into the title, and a lot more likely to spend, you know, especially if it comes to clothing and you know, decorations for your home and all that sort of stuff. I definitely do think that will drive a more female audience and attract a lot more females to the space as well, and then potentially they'll venture off into the rest of the Hoyo universe.
Revenue increase of something they probably never expected. I think this new open world game, the fact that it is going to be a modern open world, it said urban, right? Urban open world stylized RPG. This could be essentially the Project Mugan before Project Mugan releases.
Dude, that'll be insane if this did actually come before Project Mugan, because it looks like Neverness to Everness is going to happen before it. You know, that game popped out, everybody was hyped, it got like 5 million freaking pre-registrations off the initial trailer, and then they just went radio silent. And if Neverness to Everness and then Hoyo's game comes out before that, that's just wild.
I can't believe, like, when Mugan announced, people lost their minds. Neverness to Everness was announced. People were like, oh, this could be the Project Mugan that Project Mugan never was. But no, when this game comes out, people are even gonna be like, Neverness to Ever what?
He's got to get that hotter slander in there, hasn't he? He's got to get it in there. Well, I don't know, maybe lots of people will think like that. I think the people who are Genshin players or Hoyo, who prefer to stay in the Hoyo ecosystem will think like that. I won't. I think Neverness to Everness looks great, and I'm here for it. Now, I'm not saying that the Hoyo version of that kind of thing is probably going to look a little bit better, especially on UE5 and with the artistic talent they've got there. Okay, I'll give him that. But yeah, man, I'm still hyped for Neverness to Everness sticks. Any chance, man? Any chance to roast hotter?
But this is very cool. I like that Hoyo are working on 5 new games. 5. The Nikkei devs are working on 1.
This is massive. This is massive.
Are working on 1. Kudo with Project Nami are working on 1. All these other big gacha studios are working on like 1 game, maybe 2. Here's Hoyo,
but the resources of Hoyo,
on 5.
You know.
5 entire
it's in another
upcoming
stratosphere,
gacha
isn't
games. 5. God damn, dude, this is, oh my god, this is interesting. This is gonna be big.
This is huge. I think this is huge for people who are interested in gacha games. I think this is huge. I know people, it's cool nowadays to rag on Hoyo. You know, I get it. It is. It's the in thing to do. I like to do it myself sometimes. It's funny. It's funny, especially when you see Hoyo people lose their mind over stuff. You only have to criticize Genshin and they get crazy. But this is big. You know, they're covering a lot of different genres, and let's not pretend that they don't. In my opinion, anyway, I think they make good games, and this is going to be a lot of competition for a lot of spaces within the gacha game. And again, this European American shooter, what if it's not even a gacha game? You know, maybe they're branching outside the space, they're trying stuff, they're experimenting, potentially trying to grab some of the Western audience. We'll see.
They are going to dominate the gacha market more than ever before. And honestly, I can't wait to cover it all. Hey you, where do you think you're going? Don't you close out of this tab. I didn't give you permission.
Okay, all right, interesting. So, yeah, this is really big, this is. I'm here for it. I guess we'll wait, get more news, see what's happening. But I think this is massive for the space. It's definitely going to make a lot of the developers be like, okay, oh shit, let's get to work, boys. Let's get to work. We got some problems on the horizon. But hopefully We start to see some sort of stuff trickling down to us very soon. We get some imagery, we get some gameplay, we get some artwork, we get more of a premise and more of an idea of what these games are going to be. I'm really interested in the shooter concept just because I think it's interesting to see what that's actually going to be. We've already saw the gameplay for the one, the chibi style Animal Crossing kind of game. We saw that. It looks okay. It's not really for me. I'll try it out, but I'm not really into those sort of games, so it's not something that I'm going to play. I know that 99% sure, unless they do something insane. It's got no combat as well, apparently, so it's not really for me, but I'm sure lots of people will like that. But yeah, Hoyo, working on 5 new gacha games. It didn't actually say that they were all gacha games, did it? Or am I tripping? But massive, massive news. Guys, check Sticks out. This is why I like watching Sticks' channel. Hits me with the knowledge, hits me with the stuff that I didn't really know about. And I'm here for it, man. I'm here for it. Great video.